Yep, I got you.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephen Lord. I'm with Sisters Camp Sherman Fire District. I hold the title, which is an OSFM grant title for the Department of Community Risk and Wildland Fire Specialist. So I spend about 50% of my time doing wildland fire and prevention inspections of anything that a deputy fire marshal would do, as well as I also respond on calls as a firefighter EMT. So obviously everybody knows we've almost got a record-setting year of loss in acres in Oregon. And daily I receive calls from people who are losing their insurance, are not being renewed, can't find insurance, can't sell their home because the buyers can't buy insurance. And so this is a hot topic, and typically it takes wildland fire around us to get everybody kind of peak interest in doing something about defensible space. But now we've got the element of insurance involved. And so we are working feverishly to work with legislature. We are working with OSFM. We're working with all the different agencies on trying to get squared up so we don't lose our ability to have insurance. So I've got a presentation that we do for our fire corps actually does defensible space best practice. We call it the WUI. We're living in the WUI. And so they go out and do wildfire assessments on homes, as well as myself and our chief of prevention. He's our fire marshal. And so we're doing a lot of these, so it's taken a lot of people to do this. And this is one of the training programs, and I've taken some slides out of things that we have our fire corps trained in doing. And we also work with ODF to do these as well. So between ODF, the fire marshal's office, and our district, we're providing these at no cost, which no fire district should be charging you for that, but because we're doing our due diligence to try to make sure that we all have homes to go back into in case of wildland fire in our city or sisters country, all the way to Bend. So basically the course objectives are historical context of fire in Central Oregon. We have let's see, we're living in the WUI and some disasters. I'll go over some of those. Structure, ignition, building materials, defensible space and the home ignition zone, and how to conduct assessments. And this is basically kind of showing you what we are going to do when we go into, if you're all with a homeowners association.
Progress.
What we're finding out when we go to people's homes and what we're recommending they do. I met a point in the springtime where a lot of the things I was telling homeowners as recommendations to do, they didn't jive with their current CC&Rs or ARC committees. And so I was like, well, we're kind of at a roadblock because we want to prevent people's homes from catching on fire, especially if you're living in close proximity to your neighbor. And so I thought, how are we going to fix this? And so what I found is that most CC&Rs are out of date. And so it's a great opportunity to talk with homeowners associations and ARC committees. And that's what we're doing in Sisters right now. So let's look at where we live. So this is, we're going to touch on current wildfire situation and how we got here. But basically, if you look at the landscape, you look at the Subalpine Lodgepole, those are all way up in the Cascade Crest. And then we kind of fall down in the Ponderosa Pine, and then you see a Bend star there. We're kind of in the transition zone for as far as Ponderosa Pine, bitterbrush, juniper trees. And so that's kind of where we're living. And that's a pretty good part of where we have a lot of fire because it's super dry. Did you guys see that slide? I think I'm one slide ahead. So you see the lodgepole?
Yeah, we're looking at the trees and the graph.
Okay. So you see where we're at, the little star there, that's Ponderosa Pine. And And so then as you go to east, as you go east, you're going to go into juniper woodland, and we're going to have a great photo of how fire has not affected that area. And so it's going to give you an idea of what we're living with as far as ponderosa, which is a great, pretty fire resistant tree as far as a conifer. And then when we get into these junipers, they're sucking up all the water, and they're creating issues for the ponderosa pine. So just as a side note, a juniper tree, 30 feet tall, probably drinks between 45 and 55 gallons of water a day. So that's sucking a lot of water away and nutrients away from the ponderosa pines, or even your own plants in your yard. If you basically can see that not much grows underneath them. So what we have now is the role of fire in dry forests. Now, if you look at the left side, without frequent flyer, and a lot of us have been tricked in the last 50 years to when we drive out in the forest and we like, man, it looks really healthy in there. You see all these trees and green, but you're seeing a lot of the smaller trees, which typically would, when we have, long before we lived in the forest, lived in the forest, we'd have lightning fires come through, and a lot of the smaller trees and duff would all be burned up, and it allows the ponderosa pines to grow. So, or any tree that's fire resistant. So what happens with a ponderosa pine is they drop 30% of their needles a year. That's for protection for stuff not to grow around near their trunk. It's also to retain moisture for them. And if fire ever comes through, the trunk of the tree recognizes the heat, and it'll tell the tree to start growing taller. So what the problem with the smaller trees and the crowding is that everybody's fighting for the same nutrients. They end up having disease. And if a fire goes through there, then those smaller trees become ladder's fuel, which we're going to go through that a little bit later in the slideshow. This is a pretty obvious slide, or climate change, and just whether it's cyclical or whether it's environmental, we're having climate change. So the forests are drier, obviously temperatures are rising, and our snow melt is not been great recently. We had a pretty good year this past year, but we also thought we were going to have a moderate fire season, and boy, it really started in July this year. Typically, our fire season in Central Oregon, it really hits its peak in September. So we're a little worried about this weekend with being a holiday, and also lightning. We're hearing that we might have dry lightning from ODF. They told us that last night. We're gonna have a bunch of travelers in town, and so the hair on our arms starts to stand up when we kind of reach those 90 plus temperatures and those other factors involved. So here's a great photo of juniper trees, Keystone Ranch. This is east of Prineville. So 1890, you can see in the slide there, and no fire has gone through there in a long time. And look at what it looks like in 1989. So those junipers used to be bushes on our forest floor, and without the fire burning them off, they become trees. So that's kind of, if you live in our world, we don't really like junipers. They're I only have junipers at my home in Cloverdale, and that's the only shade I have, but 30 feet away from my house is not far enough for a juniper tree. They are like a hot torch against your house if they catch on fire. So let's look at why we have fire starts. So this is over the past 10 years. Human-caused fires have made up 70% of our fires, and this is just the Sisters area. So all the red are human-caused fires, and then the rest is lightning. So we have both, but typically it's more human-caused, and we've had a mixture of that this year. July was mostly human-caused fires around us and south of us, and then around to the east, we had the lightning come around us and kind of head east, and we kind of dodged a bullet there. So that's what we're dealing with is changing people to not more prevention and people not doing dumb things to start fires. Local context, historically, our wildfires freely burned at low intensity. And that's when I talked about they go through the forest floor and they burn everything off. That's what we do when we do prescribed burns in the springtime. We're trying to get those fuels down so we have less ignition and less fuel on the ground. We don't want that fuel to catch up into those trees, because then the trees catch on fire. And then with any wildfire, is basically in our world is associated with winds. So the winds are going to drive the fire. If we just have a lightning strike and there's no wind, then 2 days later, we're going to see smoke from a tree out in the forest that got hit by lightning that's burning up. And then ODF or the BLM guys go out and they put those fires, those trees out. We live in the wildland urban interface. So the definition is right there on your screen: geographical area where structures and other human development meets or intermingles with wildland or vegetative fuels. So any location where a wildfire can spread from vegetation to structures. So we have great forest management around Sisters, and I imagine some of you live elsewhere. Around us, we have a lot of fuels mitigations work done. Over the past 20 years, they've been doing it with mastication or with prescribed burns. And so what I've been running into is a lot of people like to point to the forest as where the fire is going to come from. And they're like, well, if the fire doesn't get to my neighborhood, my house isn't going to catch on fire. Well, if we have a wildland fire, and there's wind associated with it, wherever the wind's blowing, is where we're going to have an ember shower. And so just think of ember showers, and I'm going to show you a video at the very end to kind of summarize what I'm talking about. But ember showers, I tell people, it's kind of like when it starts to snow, or you can have a blizzard. And depending on the wind, that's what it's going to look like. But you can't really be out in it because it's like hot pokers blowing on you. And they can be as small as a piece of bark that's glowing, all the way to pieces of chunks of bark that are actually flames. So it's pretty scary, and it's associated with smoke. So a lot of times you can't see anything either. And so we had a major wildland fire that's hitting Sisters, and we've got a mile in width fire ember shower coming at us. You're going to see how quickly everything starts on fire. And so we've tried to mitigate the fuels that will catch on fire. And the most important part is going to be your home and your defensible space. Here's a continuum of the wildland fires. We just talked about how they come in. And so if the embers are actually coming from the wildlands all into our neighborhoods, they're landing in the bark dust that's right next to your siding of your home. And all that stuff lights on fire, and it gets enough flame and heat impingement on your home to start it on fire. That's what we're worried about. So anything in the 0 to 5 feet defensible space from your foundation out is going to catch your house on fire. And we're not even mentioning right now what might be on your roof, like if you have pine needles and that's a maintenance issue. So the fires can come from within, and they can also come from the forest. Here's a good picture. You look at the top one, you see how fire ravaged this neighborhood, and the pine trees are left standing, which is kind of amazing. And that's kind of what we saw in Paradise. A lot of home-to-home ignitions were due to fencing, and you're going to see a video on that as well. These are some conflags that we've had around us where we've sent our staff to these different fires throughout the years. This year, the Deschutes County tried to keep us all within Deschutes County because we weren't having any fires. So we did 10 task force deployments. We've had no fires really in Sisters. Last year, the whole summer, we did 2. And so, and it's been quite the last couple of weeks. Wildland urban interface. So that's where we live. It's not so much of a fire problem as a structure ignition problem. So if you're looking at this house here, you've got the correct type of roofing on it, which that's a composite roof or metal roof or tile. Those are the 3 roofs that we'd like to see on homes. It used to be code in Sisters where people, you would have to put shake roofs on your on your home. Thank goodness that that is not the case anymore, because you get to see a picture of that. But you see a lot of greenery around this house. You see a lot of hardscape, that 0 to 5 feet. And it's hard to tell if those are conifers or just deciduous plants, but everything around this house burned. And for whatever reason, either it was stopped because of the fuel was low, like in the bottom of the photo there, it looks like rock and probably grass burned right up to rock, and then it couldn't blow any further. But we're more worried about the potential for your home to catch on fire. So if homes don't ignite, they don't burn. So we've got to reframe our goals to prevent them from ignition instead of relying on someone else to stop the approaching flames. Our resources are limited, and so it's up to homeowners to take care. And I have to do it at my house because if there's a fire, I'm coming in to the fire station to help save people's homes. So my house has to stand alone. And so I tell people that when I go to do the assessment of their home, I'm like, look, we don't have enough resources. If all these homes, all the bark dust around all these homes in your neighborhood is on fire, and you haven't done any of the hardening stuff that we think are best practices so your house doesn't catch on fire, we only have time, a few minutes per home to do mitigation, like throw the furniture off your back porch that can catch on fire if it's not metal, to take the wreath off your door, to take the garbage cans that are next to your house and put them out away from the house. All this stuff we're doing, and the longer it takes us to do each home structure, the less time we have to do others. So there's going to be a point where if we look at somebody's home and it's got piles of needles on the roof, and we've got ember showers coming and it's lighting on fire, we can do more in 30 minutes with 3 other homes than we can spending 45 minutes on trying to save one home. So we're going to look at the numbers. So we really want people, we don't like to tell people we're going to write their house off, but if they haven't done the work, then we're like, well, we just can't focus on this house alone. We have to get as many homes done as we can. So we're playing the numbers game at that point. We're going to look at fire science here in a second. These are the 3 things. It's a fire tetrahedron. You need oxygen, fire, and heat for a fire to grow. But we also, when we're looking at wildland fire, we have weather, topography, and fuel. So we just have to eliminate one of those in that, and that typically is the fuel. So when we're talking about wildland fire and to protect your home, we have to take one component out, and that's something that homeowners can do on their own. So we're going to look at continuity of fuels as they pertain to around your house. So if you have a beautiful blue spruce near your house and it's got quail habitat underneath it, and a fire comes and it catches that tree on fire and there's wind and the wind's blowing right at your house, that's fuel that's going to feed the probability of catching your home on fire, because it's going to throw more embers at your home. So we look at, and typically most of us don't live on 5 acres or have 100 feet. So and we get into the downtown area here when the houses are all close together. 0 to 5 feet is pretty much all they have. And then some homes have 5 to 30. But when we look at people's property as a whole, if they have more than 100 yards or 100 feet out, we're going to tell them, hey, as a fire front's coming your way, if the ember showers are coming and lighting stuff on fire at the 100-foot level, we want the fire to die down and die out as it comes towards your house. So we're trying to lessen the fuel load from 100 feet all the way down to 0. Here is a good photo of an ember shower. I wanted everybody to see this because I had the experience of fighting a fire when we had those ones in Detroit. I'm a volunteer with Cloverdale Fire as well, and Cloverdale Fire, we got sent down to Chemolt, and that is exactly what it looked like, except for it was black as night as well. And we couldn't see the road in front of us, so I had my I was driving, my captain, I told him to roll down the window to look at the line on the road because I couldn't see it. And there was a fire engine in front of me with its lights on, and I was about 10 feet behind him and I couldn't see his bumper. So it's pretty scary. And this is the reality of what, this is probably worst case scenario as far as ember showers. But you look at the photo on the left and you see all that vegetation that burned, looks like a brush fire. So these people had some, they had breaks in their fuel and it all burned right up to the house. And somebody did a good job of protecting it, because those grasses around the house should have caught those conifers on fire. But then you look at the house and you're like, well, look, it has a clean roof. It's got a metal roof. It looks like it's got cement and gravel around it. That person was probably pretty lucky there. We don't have a lot of that vegetation type of fuels around us. We usually have larger fuel load. Where I live in Cloverdale, certainly it's all bitter brush and junipers. This looks like they had a lot of grasses. And so those people lucked out on their home actually not burning up. All right. Here's a great video for you. There's going to be a little bit of sound coming up. And so I'll let you watch this and I'll get back to you in a second.
Even if there's sound that's supposed to be playing, it's not playing through the presentation. So you might
There's
just
no
have to
sound on that?
explain it.
Okay,
No.
well, let me explain it as it's going. So this is IBHS. They actually have this facility where they build homes with different materials. And so they have these ember generators that'll blow the embers at the structure, and they just want to see what lights. So that's a 15-mile-per-hour wind with embers blowing at it at that home. And you'll see when they look at the front of it, you'll see two sides of the house, and they just want to see what catches on fire based on the building materials as well as a 0 to 5 foot spacing. So this house right here, I believe this has vinyl gutters, which we'll never see, but it has pine needles in the crevice where the two roofs meet, and you'll see where that ignites because the wind is blowing in those same spots. So wherever the wind blows, like if you have deciduous trees next to your home, wherever the wind blows when in the fall, where leaves collect, that's where fire embers are going to blow as well. So you see it in the corner of the home there.
Good one, Ben. Really? Stop for me, boss. Stop for me.
So that's bark dust, shingle roof, vinyl gutters. Worst case scenario for a home fire, and that whole home is on a turntable, so it's going to come around to the other side of the house that's made with fire resistant material.
Oh.
Typical of what an ember shower looks like and how quickly things ignite on your homes. And if you're reading the little notes there, some fiber cement on the left side, hardly damaged. And then you got vinyl siding on the right. So as your house breezes and wind blows against it, your foundation vents and your attic vents, they have screening in them to stop critters from getting in there. Well, they also will inhale the embers. So we need the correct screening. This is showing a window. So the window broke. Actually, they opened that window. But if you have a bush that catches on fire and it reaches about 265 degrees and you have a double pane window, there's enough heat on that window to break it. And that just obviously allows an ember shower to come right in your home, light your curtains on fire if you have curtains. But it'll blow right into your home as the wind takes it. So we're going to go to, we talked about the vegetational impact on structures. If we're going to prevent home ignition, we also need to address the structural ignitability. And so when we look at homes, we start at the roof and go down. So we look at the roof composition, we look at material that's collects in the crevices, and then we look all the way down to the foundation, and then we work our way out. So this house right here, and I can't tell you for certain, it looks to be like it would have had a tile roof, but it doesn't matter what kind of the roof material it was if the embers can actually get inside the gable vents. So we got to look at it twofold. We got to look at our roof material, whether this was shake, because obviously the whole roof burned off, or if it was a tile roof or metal roof, and it's still, you don't see any metal there, so I guess it wouldn't be that. And I don't see any tile there either. So I'm assuming this might have been a shake roof house, or it could have been so hot that it could have been composite roofing, which is asphalt shingles, 3-tab composition. They have all these different kind of nomenclature for that type of roof. So, but we're looking to have everybody's homes have Class A roofing. That's exactly which will help weather a storm from embers. You see this tile roof here would be great, except for that little area in the middle where that little blocking fell out. And birds like to nest in there. Bees like to make bees nests in there. And if embers blow in there, that's fuel as well. So a bird nest can start your roof on fire. And then we have different types of roofs. So it looks like typical Northwest bend type of roofing on your left. On the right looks like my cabin and arch cape. There's some good things about both these because they're both clean, but if they're dirty, there's still potential to light your home on fire. Obviously on the right there, that's a Northwest bend type of craftsman structure. We like to see those things being screened in as well, just to minimize the ignition. Now that's heavy lumber, but if there's enough embers that sit on top of that and smolder for a while, it could potentially catch that roof on fire. See on the left side, that home gable is boxed in. We'd love to see that, but it's, we've got to do, unless you're building right now, you're just gonna, look at things in your own home and figure out where you can make improvements. Here's our mesh. If you look at your typical vent foundation, which you can buy at any hardware store now, it's a gray vent with the screening up top with an X on it. That's how it comes. You can buy 1/8-inch mesh metal screening at Home Depot, on Amazon. Hoyt's here in Sister sells it by the foot, like 33 cents a foot, and you can just cut it to size and you just push it inside your foundation vent and it will not come out. Ask me how I know. I took somebody's demonstration piece at a HOA meeting in Pine Meadow and Sisters, and I pushed it in there to show them how easy it was, and then I couldn't get it out. So I handed the prop back to the guy who bought it and said, sorry, I ruined one side of it for him. So this next slide is going to show some different types of vents, ridge, gable, soffit. Bottom right corner, that's 1/8-inch screening. Top right corner, that's 1/8-inch screening, because we've seen that all over the place. What we can't see is the middle picture with the white louvers. We always tell the homeowners, because it's hard to see from ground level, but we want to see 1/8" screening behind that. So somebody's gonna have to crawl up in the attic and check that out. We've seen some homes that didn't have any screening there. And then we've seen a lot of homes that had 1/8" screening. So it's just a visual check for us. We do have the ridge vents. Those are perfectly fine. And then the far left, the little bird block, that's something needs to be checked every year. Because birds love to peck at those things, and they can break the metal in those, and they make a nest inside your house. They do make little covers that you can put there if you notice that one of them is, or you can notice bird droppings coming out of there. I have to do that every year at my house because I have birds that love those little holes all over my 2 structures at my property. Here we go with structure ignition, non-combustible siding. So that's hardy plank siding there. And you look between the hardy plank and the stone wall there, that little piece there in the middle, that's typically metal flashing, which is great. And then you look at, we can just look at the ground cover there. The stone's not going to catch on fire. The vegetation there is not going to catch on fire, but you do have some leaves in the corner that can catch on fire. But is that really going to be a potential problem for that home? No, because that stuff's going to burn out, and it's against rock. If you had a ton of stuff there, that could be more of an issue. Hardy plank will burn, but not in a wildland fire setting. It's a house fire that starts from within. It'll eventually burn with enough heat, and as much like everything except rock, metal, and dirt, most stuff can burn. Windows, not too many people have single pane. Those single pane, those break pretty easily, about 160 degrees, the double pane, 265. Tempered would be the best thing. It's kind of like the windshield in your car. Not too many people have tempered windows. And then, you can certainly have radiant heat can crack or melt in the window framing if it's vinyl. But typically the wind's going to blow those embers off. So we're just, if you maintain your house and you've got stuff that's going to be a part of most people's codes for building, is building with fire resistant building materials. So no shake siding. If you want shake siding, hardy plank makes some, but you can't get that real wood look or stained wood look. But a lot of the building codes, and we're certainly doing that in Sisters, is building codes for new structures commercially are changing. And we're probably going to see that they're going to change as far as R3 or residential structures being built, because it's the right thing to do. We don't want our town to burn down. Here we go with the fencing. A lot of people, a lot of fencing companies, they build the fence right up to your house. Metal gates are not very cheap, but that's a good fire break. So if we're doing a 360 on this home, we're going to run around it real quick, and we're going to prop open the wood gate and make sure it doesn't close. Or if it won't close automatically, we'll just use a chainsaw and cut it. We're trying to break that fire fuel line from a fence right up to your home. Now, the home on the right is brick, but just think if you had hardy plank home, that post and all that heat coming off can certainly have radiant heat issues, which can start the inside of your wall on fire as well. This is a great patio, but and you guys, you don't have your mics on, but I can tell you, I usually quiz people on this. What's the bad thing about this home here? Well, there's 2 things. See those little ornamental arborvitaes right next to the house? Those are going to catch on fire, and that's a wick to your house. And certainly the furniture can catch on fire unless it was some fire resistant material. Typically, they're not sold that way, but some are that are actually fire resistant material. It only lasts for a couple years. If you look on your tags of your cushions, you can see whether it needs to be reapplied. If you wash the cushions, certainly has to be reapplied. But we just want people, if you're in an evacuation scenario, to put that furniture inside your house. So part of your evacuation plan, go around your house, get rid of the mats, put them all inside. If you're not home, hopefully you can call a neighbor, or if we get to your house, that's what we're going to do. So that furniture is all going to go out in the yard away from the house so it doesn't start the house on fire. The deck above is well maintained, and it doesn't have very much of a gap, which a lot of debris can fall through the cracks. And if any debris can fall through the cracks and you can't clean out the underside of that deck, embers can fall in there as well and start that material on fire, which starts your deck on fire, which starts your house on fire. So next slide is about a bigger deck, which that's a lot of fuel there. If you have that type of deck, it just needs to be cleaned on the inside. And if there's foundation vents in the back of it there, those need to be 1/8" metal screening as well. The lattice catches on fire. You'll see that in the video, but the plants are pretty good. That boxwood close to it, probably not a great idea. And it looks like that's bark dust. So bark dust is not good. But if you have bark dust, simple solution, it's right up to your house, pull it back and let it be dirt there, replace it with gravel when you can afford to. And that's what we recommend is dirt or gravel. Decorative rock is actually cheaper than changing your bark dust or refreshing in it every couple years, because I've bought in both for my home, and it was about the same price for 10 yards of aspen big gravel, 1 to 1.5 inches, as it was to buy of 10 yards of bark in 2019. And I just bought the rock recently. Here's the pine needles. That's a maintenance issue. Typically you want to have those cleaned off at least twice a year. Springtime, probably June, if you can get somebody to come out and do it for you, because that's when our fire season really kind of starts. Before that, we're going to get a lot of those spring storms, and you're going to have your roof cleaned, or you're going to clean it, and then 2 days later it looks like that again. And also that's a hardy plank board there that's cracked. That can be repaired or replaced, but that's a potential. I mean, it's very little potential, but there's bark right underneath it. You see those bark chips, or yeah, they look like fur, old bark. That certainly can catch fire and with an ember storm and catch your siding on fire and whatever's underneath that siding. Let's see. I think we have another video here. Can you hear this, Jessica?
Unfortunately, no.
No.
When you shared, you would have had to share with sound, but I don't want to mess up your presentation. So.
Yeah, no, I don't want to mess it up either, but well, we can watch this. I'll just explain it. These are two structures that are built differently, and this is a short one. So we'll have him start this. You're gonna see they got bark chips, or that's actually looks like they just chipped a tree. Again, we have the ember shower coming at it. And then the house to the right is built with, it has actually fire resistant plants that are kind of close, but the embers are going to land in the rock and just burn out. So time lapse, you can see the bark catching on fire pretty quickly, which catches the deck on fire, which catches the siding on fire. And then I believe they sprayed down that door because it was going in. You see a firefighter inside there. We have a video of him actually putting fire out on the inside. So post-test, the mulch caught on fire, caught the deck on fire. And that's a redwood deck.
So this fire on this deck falls right against the home. And then if you look there,
Stephen, we're getting some of the sound. I wonder if you just turn it up, if that might.
burns through the bottom.
That better?
Inside
Yes.
Of starting to see
Oh my gosh.
flames. And so
We can hear it
this deck was a combustion.
definitely quieter than your voice, so we can hear it.
Building, when the embers led to the ignition of this deck, we got flames.
Perfect.
inside the building. Here we
Good.
are
Okay.
on the wildfire resistant side of the house, where we had non-combustible siding, a 5-foot non-combustible zone, and 6-inch gap. We had a metal gutter, and multi-pane windows. And we see in comparison to the non-wildfire resistant side, the side had the same ember exposure. If you look here in the mulch, you can actually see some of the embers that had accumulated, but because they had no susceptible fuel to ignite, they just landed there and fizzled out. And here we have ornamental vegetation that again is susceptible to the embers, but because it's more than 5 feet away from the home, it didn't have enough energy to ignite, and it never led to a flame impact on the building.
Okay, let's look at defensible space. People, when we come to do a wildland fire assessment, people say, well, if you're going to tell us to remove all this stuff, we're going to have this desert landscape or moon landscape. We've heard that too. So when we come out to look at your homes, and we're going to skip that, we're looking at this defensible space here. We talked about from the roof down and then the 0 to 5 feet out, the most important part of defending your home. If you have 5 to 30, you're going to try to lessen the fuels there. And if you have a wildland assessment, they're going to go over this with you. You can find a lot of these slides, NFPA, or just look up home hardening or defensible space on Google it. And you're going to come across this picture a lot. Because everybody's using it in some form or fashion. Here's what we'd like to see. That's not always something that somebody can do. And we understand that. Again, we're not trying to moonscape your house. So there is OSU extension. You can just Google OSU extension fire resistant plants, and there is a link to all the plants and pictures of what basically they're recommending for Central Oregon. Amy Jo Detweiler is the author of that. She actually lives in Central Oregon. She's great. She comes out and does community talks for us, and she wrote the book. So that's something you can look at. Hard copies if you want it. We have a lot of the fire stations received them from the State Fire Marshal's office. Here we go again. This ignition free zone 0 to 5 feet. This is going to be on your deck, so that furniture can and will catch on fire. Just actually the fabric on it. The rest of it's all metal, it looks like. Here's Amy Jo's. This is the front page of the book, I believe. Fire resistant plants. We're looking for perennials, deciduous. We don't want any conifers. They're the least fire resistant. You see there at the bottom. You can have conifers, just have them out further away from your home. You'll get to see this video of some conifers planted up against a home, which look very much like, well, that's a big shrub on the bottom, but the ones in the middle, left and right, we see those a lot, and that's they catch a lot of stuff. So if you have those, put your hand in there and pull back and look to see what's underneath it. It's all dead material, plus anything that's fallen in there over the years. You can't clean it out. And this is what it looks like when it catches on fire. Hopefully that plays. There you go. So there's no sound to this video, but this was, I think the person that videoed this, obviously a neighbor, and look at the plant right in front of their house. And they're looking at this, Sony probably walked by and threw a cigarette butt in there. And I think they started taking this video within like a minute and a half of it catching on fire. So that's what happens when you have these plants close to your home. Here's what we typically see. Sagebrush, bitterbrush, juniper with all high oils. That's super flammable. We see a lot of mugo pine around here, and spruces and arborvitaes for, basically, if you're a homeowner association and you don't want your garbage cans to be seen, or your propane tank, you say you need to screen it off. If you ask them to put a wood structure or fencing around it, you've got fencing like cedar fencing that's flammable. Obviously arborvitaes provide good screening, but they're the worst to have there. And that's kind of how I started on this whole thing with talking with HOAs, is that, we need to be allowing people, and for your own home as well. Because if one home catches on fire, the whole neighborhood's gonna going to be flattened because, again, we have the ability in Sisters to fight one house fire at a time with neighboring departments without callbacks, without 30 minutes waiting for Ben to come help us if it gets out of control. So again, we want people's homes to stand alone. Here's the defensible space, the 5 to 30. And this is fine. That's a juniper tree there, but it's out far enough away from the home. And you see out past the 30 feet, you see a lot of dry grasses. That's hot, flashy fuels that'll burn quickly, but it has low flame coming off the top. But say, for instance, you saw the shrub catching on fire. Any of those conifer types of plants, the flame length that comes off them is 3 times the size. So it's a 3-foot shrub. You got 9 feet of flames coming off it. And that's why they catch tree branches on fire if they're planted right underneath, like say these, there's a juniper or a bitter brush or something right underneath this tree. It's going to catch these branches on fire pretty quickly. This is a continuous fuel load. Those are ladder fuels. Again, in the interest of time, that's something if you have assessment done in your home, which you can call your local fire department, state fire marshal's office, do them as well. They're going to go over this stuff with you specific to your yard. So I don't want to get too much into that. Here's a good picture of a couple. These are junipers. This obviously is in Sisters. And then you see the wood pile. The wood pile is fine if it's 30 feet away from your home. And it's okay to have it on your deck in the wintertime, but when June rolls around, put it way out away from your house. If you have a wood shed that's connected to your home, make sure it has doors on it so nothing can blow into it. This is a zone 3, the 30 to 100 feet. And they did a good job. If you have a couple of these bushes around here in like an island, we tell people to make them little islands so there's fire breaks in between them. Because some people have a ton of stuff and they're like, where do I start? Well, we want you to start little things and get the stuff done as you have time or resources. So the most important, again, is that 0 to 5 feet. Okay, this is the survey that we use when we come out to do people's homes. This will be sent to you as soon as we do the assessment. And really, we'd like people to walk around with us and read the notes or take notes, excuse me. And then we're going to put notes in here. But the assessment basically is giving us pretty much what vegetation is, what's going on with the vegetation around the home. The very bottom of it, we're going to add notes in to like make sure that the propane tank isn't near the house, the garbage cans go inside, all those little things. And every house has something different as far as this survey that we use. And we can see this when on our fire engines, when we go into, like, if we went to Bend to help them with a fire, we can see what homes have been surveyed. We can see if it's a Firewise neighborhood. Really helps us in comfortability on whether we're going into a dangerous area or not. So we're doing this more and more. This kind of started a couple of years ago. So you'll see this if you have a home assessment. And then
as the threat of wildfires,
this is a summation of everything I've talked about, which is pretty impactful. So it's about 7 minutes.
Changes to your property can have a big impact on how vulnerable you are and your home. Matt Gutman is in South Carolina at the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, testing out the latest research on fire safety. Good morning again, Matt.
Hey, good morning again, Robin, here at IVHS. They study how wildfires work, and so that's why they have this bank of ember generators. Beyond that, they have a wall of fans. They want to learn how to better protect structures from wildfires, and you can see they have stuff cooking already in the mulch. This is how quickly it catches. Now, I'm from California. We have wildfires. It's a part of life there, but we are starting to see fires catch in places like Louisiana and New Jersey, places that were considered lush. And for the uninitiated, it might seem that there is nothing you can do when a wildfire is coming right at you to your community or your home. But we have learned here that there are a number of practical steps that you can take to help protect your home and your family.
We're at a one-of-a-kind test facility where researchers study the science of wildfires, something I've spent much of my career covering for ABC News in California.
Wow! The intensity of that is absolutely enormous. The heat is overwhelming. There's almost nothing they can do with that wind. This is the fire storm. We're going to the other side of the car.
Here at the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, or IBHS, that powerful wind is simulated by this towering wall of more than 100 industrial-strength fans, blasting those red-hot embers towards structures. This helps scientists learn what kinds of building materials will burn and what can withstand the hot fury of Mother Nature. Experts say it's those scorching embers, though tiny, that can turn small fires into town-destroying events. It was those wind-driven embers in Maui in August that experts say helped the historic and deadly inferno to spread so fast, killing at least 97 people and engulfing more than 2,000 structures, most of them homes. But not this one, featured in the Honolulu Civil Beat, virtually unscathed. Some called it a miracle. The researchers at IBHS point to two factors that likely saved the structure: a commercial-grade steel roof and river stones surrounding the home. The homeowners telling the Civil Beat they replaced their traditional landscaping with the stones not to protect their home from fire, but from water and termite damage. Little do they know that one of the key tactics IBHS teaches is creating a minimum of a 5-foot fire-resistant buffer zone around your home, using hardscapes and non-combustible fencing.
Like your moat. You are keeping wildfire and embers away from your structure.
This time-lapse video shows a fire ignited along a fence between two structures. Watch as the fire never reaches the home on the right because it can't pass through that metal fence. The wooden fence on the left, however, acts like a wick of a candle, bringing the fire directly to the house. And now they've built a home just for us.
So you can see there are two distinct sides here. One has this wooden mulch outside. You see a wooden deck, wooden siding. The other side is a wildfire prepared home. And these are fire resistant sidings. You can see the metal in the deck, that fence, the part that actually touches the house, that is also made out of metal. And you can see this hardscaping all around.
So under the supervision of the Richburg Fire Department, we fired up those ember generators and they allow me to step right in their path. And in just minutes,
These embers are coming in fast. And just now, this is the start of a fire right underneath this bush here, right next to the deck. This could be the thing that ignites this whole house here. This deck, the one made out of steel, nothing. And this deck right now is catching fire. That thing is going to blow up. This deck is now completely engulfed in flames. It's going to take this house.
and less than 2 minutes later, it did exactly that. All the while, the right side remained seemingly untouched.
This house is virtually gone. You can hear, you can feel the heat from those flames right now. It's absolutely massive. And you can see how quickly that wooden side of this house was engulfed in flames. It's in the eaves right now, which also means it's going through those vents.
Those vents were covered in steel protective mesh, but they were the wrong size. The hole was so big, they let the embers through.
The rule of thumb here is that you don't want mesh that can have a nail or a golf tee go through it. You want it to be a bit finer than that, something that can block this stuff. That way, the embers can't get through that mesh.
Okay, I'm gonna give us a couple minutes here because it's almost 1 o'clock. I want to make sure that we're on time. This video is a summation of what we went over, so I'm gonna skip through it here. I want to make available to everybody, since I wanted to open up for question and answer, to contact me directly. Even if you're not in Sisters Fire, you can contact me directly and ask me questions. I'm really interested in your ability to gain some information for your homeowners. And I'll tell you about what we've done with homeowners associations in Sisters, which has been pretty impactful about HOAs changing their ARC committee rules on plants, talking with CNC Nursery about what we have plans for in neighborhoods that they maintain, condominiums or townhomes. So we're doing these inspections for everybody. And then we're involving everybody so they know exactly what we're looking for, and what to expect in the future. And that's potentially code changes that will be enforceable, which could be, there's thrown out ideas of fines. And, they just don't know who's going to do it, where the money's going to go, and how much it's going to be. But we're way behind in the ball game. And so I implore you to look at your HOA and your CCNRs and your ARC committee rules. And I can probably get you one of the, a copy of what Pine Meadow has done here. We also have Clear Pine that's working on theirs. We have 18 to 20 communities, and Sisters is 3,500 people or less, that are Firewise, from homes that are close to each other all the way to, these larger lots where their neighbors are few and far between. But we actually really want you guys to get the information. And so I'm going to share with you, if you guys, or if you want, Jessica can also share my information. It's Stephen Lord at Sisters Fire, and my email address is slord, LORD, at sistersfire.com. Or you can just call the station and leave me a voicemail. If I'm not at my desk, I'll get back to you. But I really want you guys to use me as a resource. And then you can also call your local fire department. But obviously I'd be the better resource because you saw the presentation, and I'd be happy to discuss what we're doing here to help. And really what we're trying to fend off is all those calls about insurance and how that's going, and people's ability to get insurance, and people losing their homes because they can't get insurance. And so we're trying to make sure that we're staying ahead of the game. And so we're making a big push. That's why Oregon State Fire Marshal's office has given a grant for my position. Now the Sisters Fire is keeping me on past the 3 years of the grant, because it was something that they wanted to do before they received the grant. So I thank you all for participating. It's 1 o'clock on the nose. Again, reach out to me. I'd love to talk with you, and I hope you have a great day.
Stephen, I just wanted to say thank you so much. That was incredibly informational, and just for my own personal house, and then also for our HOA communities. I thought that was excellent. And I'll make sure and send out the recording to everyone, and see if I can get the slides, and then also Stephen's contact information so that you can contact him.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.